Good morning, Fort Telesur. I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas. Egyptian officials and the United Nations are pressing Israeli and Palestinian negotiators in Cairo to come to an agreement on Israel's controversial blockade of Gaza. Israel has agreed to ease certain restrictions, which include expanding fishing rights and loosening border restrictions to allow more people and commercial trucks into Israel and the West Bank. The proposals would fall short of Hamas's longtime demand that the 7-year blockade be completely lifted. The United Nations has also requested that the blockade come to an end. Israeli Finance Minister Yair Lapid says that if the ceasefire is not extended, Israel will continue with more attacks. Israel's military redeployed near the Gaza border on Wednesday. The current ceasefire is set to expire at the end of the day. Venezuela continued with its support to the Palestinian people by sending tons of humanitarian aid to Gaza. Here's our Venezuela correspondent, Rachel Boothroyd.
Whilst this might be a military plane on the outside, its cargo represents not war and violence, but rather the construction of a firm and lasting bond between two nations.
Venezuela! Viva! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
On board the plane are over 12 tons of humanitarian aid, which today was sent by Venezuela to the besieged Gaza Strip in Palestine, where over 2,000 civilians have been killed and 10,000 injured at the hands of the Israeli army in just over a month. Today was another step in over a decade of solidarity between Venezuela and Palestine, two nations which regularly refer to each other as brothers.
Nosotros sabemos, no es una reacción del momento, sino
we know that this is not just a one-off reaction, but rather a demonstration of solidarity and support of real historic commitment to the Palestinian cause. It is a reflection of the principles of the revolution, which began with the eternal President Commander Chavez.
De los principios de la revolución que comenzó el presidente comandante eterno Chávez.
Since the Bolivarian Revolution came to power in 1999, Venezuela has played a leading role in raising its voice against the continued Israeli invasion of Palestine, which has been in a state of occupation since 1967. The government's actions have helped to bring the Palestinian cause to the forefront of the international political gaze.
Es una posición común de nuestra región.
This is a common stance in our region. The structural solution to the conflict is the recognition of the Palestinian state, free, independent and sovereign.
Libre, independiente y soberano.
Despite the existence of a 72-hour ceasefire, the Palestinian Authority is pessimistic about Israel's commitment to negotiations. Yet with the world's eyes currently fixed on Palestine, solidarity from an increasingly united Latin America could prove more important than ever before. Rachel Boothroyd, Telesur, Caracas, Venezuela.
Russia and Egypt are set to increase trade and consider a free trade agreement. It's an attempt to overcome sanctions placed on Russia by Western nations. The agreements were made on Tuesday when Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Russians will sell more wheat to Egypt in return for the Egyptian exports of potatoes, onions, garlic, and oranges. Putin says both leaders are looking at the possibility of a free trade area. Russia will need to increase its agricultural exports by 30% to make up for its ban on EU, US, Canadian, Norwegian, and Austrian food products. Japan will strongly protest Russian military exercises on the disputed Pacific Islands known as the Southern Kurils in Russia and the Northern Territories in Japan. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says the protest will be led by the foreign minister. Japan has repeatedly protested the Russian presence on the island. And a Japanese foreign ministry official says Japan will renew its objections. According to Russian news agency Interfax, the Russian military exercises had already begun on Tuesday. The lands have been disputed since the end of World War II when Russia seized them from Japan. U.S. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel announced Tuesday that the White House will send an additional group of 130 military advisors to northern Iraq. He hopes the group will help Iraqi and Kurdish forces stop ISIS rebels from advancing. The soldiers will develop options for the rescue of members of the Yazidi sect who remain trapped by ISIS fighters on Mount Sinjar. Hagel maintains that the soldiers won't take part in actual fighting on ground operations. Since June, the U.S. government has sent about 700 military personnel to Iraq to protect U.S. diplomats and analyze Iraq's military capacity. Last week, the U.S. Army bombed several ISIS positions. The European Union approved its member countries to supply weapons to Kurdish forces in coordination with Baghdad for its fight against ISIS. Australia and the United States will sign an agreement increasing the U.S. military presence in Australia's Northern Territory. The deal will also include closer missile defense cooperation. The so-called Force Posture Agreement will see a total of 2,500 Marines at the base in Darwin by 2017, a substantial increase from the current number of just over 1,100. The agreement includes incorporating Australian Navy ships into a ballistic missile defense shield for the Asia-Pacific region, the location of 5 of America's 7 treaty allies. Australian Foreign Minister Julie Bishop says that the agreement will signify a new stage of bilateral cooperation. The initial talks for the agreement were conducted in June between Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott and U.S. President Barack Obama. The deal is scheduled to be formally signed in Sydney this week. U.S. President Barack Obama called for calm Tuesday after a police officer shot and killed an unarmed black teenager in a Missouri suburb. The event led to protests, riots, and violent clashes with police. Obama urged the community of Ferguson, Missouri, and across the country to remember this young man through reflection and understanding. 18-year-old Michael Brown planned to start college this fall. Ferguson's population is about 66% African American, while black officers only make up 5% of its police force. The identity of the officer firing the fatal shots remains unknown. The FBI has opened a civil rights investigation into the case, and Obama has promised a U.S. Department of Justice investigation. The World Health Organization reported this Wednesday that the testing of 2 potential human vaccines for Ebola will be finished by the end of September. WHO Deputy Marie Pauli says that there are currently 2 vaccines in development to combat the fatal Ebola virus. She explains that although the drugs have shown great effectiveness in animals, they will not be tested in humans until September, when the medical conditions are right. Some hope these experimental vaccines could end the largest Ebola outbreak in history. Ending with sports, Argentina's Football Association announced Tuesday that Gerardo Martino will become the head coach of the national soccer team. He will replace Alejandro Sabella. Sabella left Argentina's national team after falling to Germany in the final match of the World Cup in Brazil. Martino's contract will last until the qualifying round for the Russia 2018 World Cup and will be renewed automatically if Argentina qualifies for the tournament. Martino will also coordinate Argentina's minor national team in an attempt to qualify for the Rio de Janeiro Olympic Games of 2016. Martino previously served as the coach of the Barcelona Football Club in Spain. Plenty more on those and other stories at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Have a good day.